Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the minister of this congregation, and I welcome you all here. Whether you're here in person, watching us online, whether you're here for the first time, or for the numbers of time that you can't even remember which one it is, you're welcome here. Wherever you are on your faith journey, whatever the faith that you claim that you have, or maybe you don't claim any particular faith, you're welcome here. However you come, with whatever you're bringing this morning, whether it's hearts full of joy, hearts full of concern, or just somewhere in between, you're welcome here. Our call to worship today comes from Katie Candorin Morris and her words titled, Hoping, Trusting for So Many Things. Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration, and consolation. Here we have come into this space bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are, changed. So come, let us worship together. This week on Wednesday, we had some strong storms. We had a choir practice and we ended early this practice so that everybody could get home safely. For me, it takes more than an hour to get home. And while I was driving, I saw a lot of lightning. There were a few raindrops that hit the windshield. There was a lot of wind. But I avoided the storm for the most part, except the last exit. It hit me. It hit with such a strong blow. There was hail pounding on it. Winds were just shaking my car. And the rain was so much, I couldn't even see anything in front of me. It was swirling. I saw cars parked under the bridge. And I decided to join them. I pulled over, I stopped under the bridge. Nobody dared to pass me to go into the storm. We were all sitting there under the bridge, waiting out the storm. It's not recommended to park under the bridge. Just don't get me wrong on this, right? On this one. But once the the strongest part of the storm, the wave of it, had kind of eased out, that's when I got out on the road and to get home as quickly as I can. We were just hanging out there with other cars, with our alarm lights on, and we're just hanging together. The wind was so strong that even under the bridge, I thought I was going to fly, that it will pick it up. I was hoping that I wouldn't. I got home just in time to get a warning that there's a flash flood happening in my area, so I escaped that one. And the next morning, I found emails in my mailbox from the choir people wondering if everybody got home safely. The storms have a way of bringing people together. Just last month, there was another storm, and you're going to hear more of these stories as we go on. But there's another storm in Fort Worth, in my area where I live, that had wind gusts up to 95 miles an hour. As a result, 175,000 people were left without power. The winds were so strong and, I would say, even scary, that my husband and I, we couldn't sleep. We were staying up, and we heard how a branch fell from our big, huge ash tree and landed on the roof of our house. Just a few minutes later, the wind picked up that branch again, only to land it in the bed of my husband's truck, damaging only the windshield on its way. But the next morning, when we did finally woke up and the storm had passed, we saw the damage in our neighborhood. There were branches lying everywhere. Some trees lost half of their branches, the whole trunks, some of them were down. There were houses that were missing shingles on the roof. And of course, neighbors across the street, the whole block of them had lost power. So they came over to charge their laptops and phones in our house because we still had power, surprisingly. Together with our neighbor, we were chopping down the branches in our yard to put them nicely piled up so they can be taken away. Yes. Then we went to help the neighbor and chop down their branches. And then we went across the street to help another neighbor to chop their branches down. And there were other neighbors who worked together between the houses to clean up the mess that the storm left behind. That's work together. The whole neighborhood was joining in cleaning up the storm mess. There have been a number of storms that have created much worse damage than these. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wildfires, mudslides have destroyed people's lives and livelihoods. And that has happened in many places around the world. And what I've seen, what we see on the news for the most part in the midst of these disasters, is that even though there's a deep heartbreak, the community comes together to help one another. They find compassion in themselves to help the neighbor, to help their loved one, to help a stranger who is no longer a stranger after you've been in this tragedy together. They help with food, with shelter. They join together to seek for survivors. And they lean on each other to get through this, whatever they're experiencing. There are many storms that happen in our lives that are not necessarily just the weather storms, but they are these life storms that hit us. And many of us have experienced those. Relationships breaking, strength running out, financial hardships looming over us, unemployment, uncertainties, and struggles pulling us down, health challenges scaring and discouraging us, our loved ones dying. There have been a number of storms that have affected this church, this community, and some of those pretty recently. You still remember, many of you still remember the floods just two years ago? Is it already 2 years ago? That 21, 2 years ago, right? That completely flooded this whole building and required repairs. All of it had to be repaired, repainted. This is why we have a new carpet here, right? We had more recently some storms with the door being attacked, with people that have invaded our space with not nice intentions, or what we call not nice intentions. And somehow we found ourselves in the midst of them without even us doing anything to create them. There are storms that we help to create too, right? I'm not going to go there right now, but there are sometimes people that stir up things among us too, and then we feel like we're in a turmoil, all of us together, in a turbulence. But the question is here for today is, when a storm is brewing, how do we get through it? How do we find strength in the midst of the storm? How do we find strength to survive? Human beings can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, 4 minutes without air. But we cannot live for 4 seconds without hope. Hope is so powerful that keeps us going forward. Helps us to survive the storms, the hardships that come our way. The neuroscientist Tali Sharot says that hope is essential to our survival, that it is hardwired in our brains, and without it, one is trapped in despair. So some of us are optimists beyond repair. We know who they are. Some they can find a good thing in the midst of any mess that you can imagine, right? Some of us are not really optimists and struggle to find hope at times. A pastoral theologian, Andrew Lester, he was a professor of counseling at Bright Divinity School. That's a school that I went to. But he was there before I got to the school. I still got to learn about his legacy and got to read some of his books. He wrote several books on anger and caring for children. And then he also wrote a book on hope. And it's called Hope in Pastoral Care and Counseling. Nothing fancy. But in this book, he says that what it means to be human is to have a capacity to hope. Hope is committed to the future. People who perceive themselves to be on a pilgrimage and on a journey into tomorrow, those are the people who hope. So here's how he explains how we come up with these ideas of what we're hoping for. And he says that our memory contains our life stories, our experiences. And our sense of hope rests on these experiences and narratives that we construct from what we've gone through. And this is where that imagination piece comes in, that when we have experienced a lot of difficult things in our life, though if we rely only on those experiences in imagining our future, it can bring up a lot of anxiety in us. Relying only on negative or painful experiences will bring out despair and hopelessness in us. And all we can say when we're hopeless and struggle to imagine a different future is, that won't work. I can't do that. That's impossible. And we find ourselves stuck in these situations, overcome with heaviness of that load. And those are the times we need help to imagine different possibilities. So there's a Peanuts comic strip, and who else would use Peanuts stories if not a UU minister, right? In this comic, we find Snoopy thinking to himself, "Yesterday I was a dog. Today I am a dog. Tomorrow I'll probably still be a dog. Oh, there is so little hope for advancement." The imagination can help us to see possibility for something different. Yes, maybe Snoopy will still be a dog tomorrow, but what if Snoopy gets to wake up in the morning to have another dog's day that is full of adventures, full of smells, full of pets and loves? What if he gets to have joy and happiness and gets to jump up and down as upon meeting a best friend in Snoopy's life? What if there is a way in our future to know that we will get through the storms, and that one day we will be able to know joy again? That's why hope is an essential tool of life that helps us to get through the rough patches in our life's journey. When everything else changes and is uprooted from our life as we know it, we are not always lost. We're not left alone. In our reading, Theresa Soto, who's a UU minister, says, "We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We return to love like a North Star that never moves. We return to truth, that we are greater together than we are alone. We know the way to the world of which we dream. By covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we will arrive at home. Our faith guides us through the life's highways and gives us strength. Our UU faith keeps telling us that love is powerful, that it heals, that it lifts us up. And the truth and covenant helps us move forward one step at a time, but it moves us into the future and the world that we are dreaming of. The faith that I'm talking about among UUs can be very different. Some of us, the faith is the understanding of the world, how we understand it. For some of us, we use the language of God and understand whatever that God is interpreted for ourselves as being involved in this world and in our lives. For others, faith is about the innate goodness in humanity, our ability to move towards goodness and kindness. Many of us look at science to begin to understand how the world works and what is our place in it. Our faith might be the one that says us that it will all turn out just all right. And ultimately, it's simply enough for me to do my part in this journey. Our faith doesn't happen on its own. Many of us have been on a long journey until arriving to this moment today. We have constructed and deconstructed our understanding of the world and what it means to be in this world as a human being in relationship with others. And that faith requires that it is tended to, that it is nurtured, that it has a community and support where we can talk about it, think through out loud with others about what we are experiencing, how we are understanding this. The same way as our hope needs nurture that we talked about in the story for all ages. So I brought with me a picture frame. It says, "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." To emphasize that together we have the power to do a lot more. We are together in this community because we know that the world can be lonely on its own. And we seek companionship for our journey. We seek help and encouragement, support when the journey gets rough. And when we are surrounded by others, we are held up when we fall. We are encouraged when we find ourselves dismayed. And we can share our hope, and our hope can be held by others together. So as I mentioned in one of the other sermons before, services that I do like to engage all of our senses in worship. So I will guide us through a ritual to help us hold our hopes for one another. I have a lot of acorns. You only saw one, but there are a lot of them here. And I have my ushers that will come and help me. They will pass out the acorns, and if you could please take one for each of you. You might be able to take two if you really need to. That's fine. And as you're holding this acorn, I invite you to think about your life and the struggles that you are experiencing in your life. And imagine your hope. What do you hope for? So I'm hoping that you all have been able to put your hope in the acorn. Now I invite you to put it back in the empty basket that will be passed around. Again, put it back in the basket. So these, we're going to hold them together. These are all our hopes. We'll pass these around again. Take one. This is representing somebody's hope in this room. Take it home and carry the hope with you. It could be somebody's that you really admire. You will carry their hope with you. It could be somebody's who annoy you. You'll still carry their hope with you. And now, may we go forth in the certainty of faith, in the knowledge of love, and in the vision of hope. And in our going, may we be blessed with all good things on this way and forevermore. Amen. The words of Harold Babcock.